Hi, you're watching The Forum, and I'm your host, Ashley Tate, along with my co-host, Christy Largent, and we are here with our guest today, Dan O'Brien. He is an entrepreneur and author of over 20 books.
That's right.
So we have to dig into, that's a lot of books to write.
It is a few, yeah.
How long over the course of how many years have you been writing these books?
About 12 years, 12 or 15, depending on how you want to. I wrote my first book when I was 16 and I was in high school.
Oh my gosh.
And I published it when I was 20, so it's kind of been nonstop since then.
So you must write like 2 books a year.
That's the goal. No, that's
the goal?
Two books a year is about the goal.
I've never been told my math was good, so thank you.
It's fantastic. That's perfect. And I'm good at math, so there you go. Too. It's right out of the money.
Okay, so I think you have such an interesting background. You're from the East Coast originally, and then what brought you out to California?
Yeah.
You know, I've always wanted to live by the ocean and not. I don't know if you've ever been to the East Coast. East Coast really isn't the ocean. Not even Florida's really. Not even Miami's really the ocean. I wanted the real ocean.
That's what I'm talking about.
And then I ended up in Northern California, which is not the ocean. Northern California is not the ocean. It's in LA. This is,
well,
we're
Northern California. Yeah, true.
There we go.
True.
Except Fort Bragg, which I love. But no, it was like every kid who grew up in the East Coast, the dream was to go to California.
Oh.
And so here I am.
Now you're California.
So here you are,
California
and
kid,
you came to Redding first, but then ended up down in Chico.
I did.
And you were teaching there for a little bit, but it wasn't such a good fit. Yeah.
Tell us why it wasn't such a great fit.
I'm one of those people who always has to be doing too much. So that's why I do consulting. That's why I publish my own books. And, that's why I did the Northern California perspective. And teaching is a very specific thing. You have to love it.
That's true.
You don't get into teaching unless you really, really love it. And I was always doing something else. So it wasn't a great fit for me. And it's better left to people if that's what they want to do. Like you guys had some hosts on before that were just fantastic, and sustainability is awesome. Teachers, hosts, not I said hosts. I meant teachers.
We knew what you meant.
Yeah.
So so tell us about this project, Northern California Perspective, and to go from being an author and self-publishing, and then starting your own publishing house. What is this whole Northern California Perspective thing about?
Well, there's a huge long story. I'll give you the truncated one. I worked at a magazine called Empirical down in Chico. It was here for a heartbeat. I'm sure you guys never heard of it, and I don't know why you would have. But it was meant to kind of be a local thing that had a national audience. I thought, you know what, there's a lot of great authors up here, myself included, not pat myself on the back.
Yeah.
But I wanted to publish people specifically from here about Northern California, because I came here, I moved here, I fell in love with Northern California.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have something that was distinctly Northern California that I could pay Northern California writers.
Yeah.
So it's nonfiction, fiction, and poetry. And it's meant to be a quarterly. We're going to do our second issue in the summer, so
this is actually, the name of it actually is Northern California Perspective.
That's right.
And where can people find that?
Anywhere books are sold.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Oh yeah, all of it's anywhere books are sold.
Wow.
I prefer Amazon because I make more money there.
Go on Amazon.
Yeah, so go on Amazon and buy it on Amazon, and that'll be just perfect.
Although that doesn't help our local economy, but that's okay.
Or go to a local independent bookstore. Support your local economy. I'm all for that too. I'm all for that too.
So is it one big book of poems and Northern California stories?
Yeah, we like to call it a literary journal. That's a really fancy way of saying a bunch of pages that's filled with that stuff.
Okay.
It's not too big. It's usually about 180 to 225 pages.
Yeah.
This next one, I don't know how long.
That's what I was going to say. Are you going to do another one? Because what if people?
Definitely.
Okay.
I want it to be quarterly. I'd love it to be quarterly.
Yeah.
That'd be ideal.
And right now, what are you publishing? How often is it now? About every 6 months?
Yeah, we just put our first one out, so our second one will be about a 6-month delay.
I love it.
Well, it's a huge project because not only do you have to collect the submissions, then you have to read them, and then do you do the editing, or are they responsible for their own editing?
No, I do the editing and the formatting. I'm really lucky. I have a good friend of mine, Eric Ellis, who goes through the slush pile for me, because that was my least favorite part about working in a magazine. Go through and of course, we don't get thousands of submissions, and if we do, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
We get maybe 100 if we're lucky.
But he'd like submissions.
Yes, please. Everybody in Northern California should send me something.
Yes. Go to his website, danobrien.com, right?
The danO'Brienproject.blogspot or amalgamconsulting.com.
And you
we'll put those links up for you.
And tell us a little bit about your consulting business, because that's where this whole entrepreneurial side of you comes from.
Sure.
So tell us a little bit about that.
What it's meant to do is to give anybody who wants to write a book an opportunity. There's a lot of predatory presses out there that you pay $2,000, $3,000, and they'll just print it in print of your book. They won't format it. They won't edit it.
Help you market it.
They won't, exactly. Yeah. So I've done all that on my own. I've been doing this for about 15 years. So I founded this consulting firm to do exactly that.
I'll
help you do any aspect of it, from inception, writing it, to formatting, editing it, showing how to go through it and how to market it.
Did you all hear that?
I spoke really fast, so I love it.
Let's listen to it one more time so people can hear that, because that is really something that I think Northern California or anyone can use.
Sure.
And you're not here just for Northern California. I mean, you can do that anywhere, right?
Sure,
you can do it over
most
Skype.
of my clients are honestly across the country.
I love it.
So they would contact you, and then you will help them. They have the book written, right? And then the next step is you do the editing. You help them with the editing, or
I think he starts from the
contract with
beginning.
you?
Well, that's up to them, really. So if somebody came to me with a manuscript and they said, hey, I want to publish this, I'd say, well, what do you want to do with it? Well, I want to get it to as many people as possible. So what size do you want it? I want it to be 6x9.
Oh, my
Make
God.
6x9, edit it, go through Create Space or Lighting Source, put it on Kindle and Nook, done deal.
Oh,
So
wow.
you're helping them they've already written the book, but
Sure.
you're helping them take that completed, quote unquote, completed book and
Taking the next step,
taking
sure.
it into publication so that
Exactly.
they can actually have all their relatives go to Amazon
To
and buy
sell it at independent bookstores locally in Northern California.
There we go.
I love it.
Anywhere.
Well, the thing is, because you're essentially a publisher, and we were talking about that earlier before. But that's big news. I mean, that's part of the other side of being an entrepreneur. I was trying to get you to toot your horn a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. You got occasionally, yeah.
But I mean, the publishing side of it is really interesting because how does that even start? How do you open your own publishing business?
Honestly, that's because publishing changed pretty dramatically
Yes,
in the
it
last
has.
5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
Anybody can be a publisher. A lot of people do that. They buy ISBNs and they
That's true,
form
yep.
their imprint. It's a lot simpler than it should be, honestly. I just have a lot of the technical skill to turn them into books.
Yeah, and the
a lot of technical
connections.
skill and the connections.
Well, and plus the editing, because
course.
frankly, as a
Editing is the bane of
reader, the
everything,
most
right?
important
Sure.
thing is that it's well edited.
That's
I mean,
true.
I,
Of course,
I
yeah.
can't even imagine some of our favorite authors, if we had seen their books prior to editing,
Oh, yeah.
The
we
editing
might be
process, yeah.
shocked, right?
Yeah.
Because the editing is where the real magic, I believe, that magic happens with
Sure.
a good editor.
It takes something out of it. You take something kind of rough and something kind of raw and turn it into something readable.
Really,
That's usually
yeah.
kind of the goal.
That
Well,
would make
you'll
writing
hear-
a little less intimidating,
You'll
though.
hear
It does. You don't have to do it yourself.
well, and even hear somebody like Amy Tan, who's like
Yeah.
world-renowned
Oh, yeah.
author,
Fantastic,
say,
yeah.
my book is not the same. I mean, every
Yeah, I know.
every forward you read, it says, thank you to my editors,
Right.
because they took this raw thing and turned it
Turned
into
it into something
magic.
else, yeah.
And so that's what you're really doing. It's a huge service. And I think one of the difficulties with modern day everybody can publish their own book
Yeah.
is that everybody can publish their own book.
Yeah.
And everyone thinks they're a writer, and the beauty is taking a professional editing. Having it professionally edited changes their book from being okay to maybe phenomenal.
I do think everybody can be a writer, but I do agree that it has to be polished in a way that makes it
Absolutely.
readable
Yeah.
and that you reach the right kind of readers.
Right.
Marketing is 90% of writing a book.
I
I always hate to say that,
100%
but,
agree.
You can write a terrible book and market it well.
Yep.
And I sell 60, 70,000 copies
So
a year,
true.
and I'm an okay writer.
How many books do you sell?
About 60 or 70,000 copies a year, but I'm an okay. I'm not really very good at it. I'm just
He's
really,
being
really
modest, you guys. Don't listen to
Wow,
him.
60 to
marketing matters.
60 to 70.
6 with 4 zeros.
Yeah, 60,000 to
60,000.
70,000.
But of course, a
That's a
lot of
lot
that
of
isn't
books.
marketing because there's a lot of strategies you can.
So how do you market?
How do, well,
You're
that's-
based in Chico.
I-
that's his
that's like
business.
a 10-part
I
series.
know, I
It is what I've got.
That's the business.
The most obvious one is identifying what you are as a writer and what your book is.
Yeah.
And starting right from there, you can do everything with
That's-
it. You have to
yeah.
know, are you comfortable coming on camera and talking about your book?
Right.
Comfortable going on the radio? Are you comfortable writing about it? Once you know those kind of ideas, you can pick out markets that will be receptive to your book and then
Yeah.
approach them accordingly.
So what kind of books are you writing?
I write a little horror, science fiction, fantasy.
Yeah.
I write a lot of the commercial, stuff that everybody kind of reads.
Now, you were saying that you started writing at 16.
I do. Actually,
right?
technically, I started writing at like 7.
Okay, so 7. He's a prodigy here.
I don't know about that. That's a big word. I
I'm
don't know
just
about
kidding.
that.
No, you started writing at 7, and you wrote your first book at 16.
16, yeah.
Okay, so was there a certain book that inspired you to start writing? Kind of where did that inspiration to?
A Wrinkle in Time and A Wind in the Willows are those two books as like a little kid that I absolutely
Yes.
adored. But Dune has to be my all-time favorite sci-fi novel.
Really?
It's the one that makes me keep wanting to write, 900-page books that nobody's going to read. Great doorstops. They keep stuff from blowing away when it's windy, but nobody reads them. Nobody reads them. It's cool, but nobody reads
That's true. And so we also have, Christy, you have this
Yep.
book that he just wrote and he just released,
Yep.
which is very thin. So
It's
You're
children's
never
book, yeah.
too old to have one more adventure.
I love it.
Beautiful artwork by Steve Frashad. I want to give him a shout
Yeah,
out.
it's
It's fantastic
great
work.
artwork.
This is a
Very
children's
economical.
book.
It is.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a
Well, it's good for all
Conspirator-
ages.
So I should read it to
Yes.
my kids. Conspirators of the Lost Sock Army and the Loose Change Collection Agency.
Oh my
Let me hold it
gosh.
still.
Now, what
so you can
level
get a
is that
good
written?
picture of this.
I would probably say 6 and up.
6 and up. Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm going to take my daughter.
Yeah,
We'll
by all
read
means,
it.
please
Love
send
that.
I know. So
So
this,
oh, go ahead.
no, this is this science fiction?
It's more like a fairy tale. Would
Okay.
be more
Oh, I love
appropriate.
it.
Okay.
Magical realism is this term that gets thrown around a lot. It's kind of closer to that.
Yeah. So
Gosh.
I would love to see, since I mean this is kind of cool that you're writing for younger kids. I think it would be really cool to see like a choose your own adventure style.
I'm totally gonna do that. No,
Are you kidding?
that was gonna
Sorry,
happen. That's
guys,
been
that
in the
was
works forever.
Totally authentic there.
I love Choose Your Own Adventure. I loved those as a kid, even though they
Me
were kind of
too.
dorky. I've been trying to resurrect them a little bit. I was
Yes.
specifically going to use Northern California as the
Oh,
background.
perfect.
But don't tell anybody. I mean, 'cause
Okay,
that's
well,
how everyone
I'm sorry,
goes.
okay.
Somebody's
Yeah.
going to beat me to it
No,
now.
they will
but,
not.
But
Yeah.
I was going to do that. That was in the works.
Well, I think an interesting
love
thing you
it.
said there, besides the exciting moment of
Sorry.
choose your own adventure, which I'm actually not sure what that means.
Oh my God! You have to. Does she not have to read one? You have to
Your
read one
adventures are
for
pretty-
yourself.
That's where you go through, and it gets to like a certain point in the story, and you have a couple options.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah,
based on the
yeah,
option,
I've
the
seen
story
those.
goes on.
Yeah.
Yes.
This hasn't been done in a while. Somebody did them with zombies. It was fantastic.
Right?
Just incredible.
So are you thinking sci-fi?
I was thinking more mystery, but like,
Okay.
you know, Hardy Boys kind of
Well,
level, you
here's
know,
the
maybe like
thing.
younger kids with
The-
some morals in it.
Or
One
for
of the
adults,
unique
'cause
things
for adults.
about what you do is that you use Northern California as sort of a character. And
Yeah.
you request, like
Yeah.
I noticed in your anthology, you request that people make sure that it's not like they're in a box.
Yeah.
Northern California, and we only have like 60 seconds
Sure.
to tell this whole thing, but
Yeah, genre doesn't matter. What matters is Northern California as a character, exactly is what you said. Like Steinbeck did and like Hemingway did, you want the place to live and to be something more than the character.
Yes.
So if you can do that, I'm going to try to do that.
Love
We'll see.
Steinbeck, by the way.
I know.
with your
Yeah.
choose your own
Yeah,
adventure.
absolutely
Okay,
choose your adventure.
So tell us again for those watching the website, the best Dan O'Brien Project.
.blogspot.com.
.blogspot.com.
or amalgamconsulting.com.
Spell that.
AMALGAM consulting.com.
Consulting.com.
And amalgamconsulting@gmail.com if you want to get in touch with me.
With Dan. I'm so
That's
glad
right.
you came on. It's so
fun.
exciting to
Yeah,
meet
it
these
was.
people here in Northern California doing amazing things
Yeah.
and really showcasing this gorgeous place we live. We're really fortunate. Thanks so much, Dan, for
Thanks for
coming
having me.
on.
Thanks, Dan.
We
That was
really
fun.
love having you and look forward to seeing all the exciting books that are upcoming. And
Yeah.
thanks for watching. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with our next guest.
Hi, we're back on the forum with Debbie Sprague, and she is a life coach and debut author of this amazing book, A Stranger in My Bed, which focuses on PTSD. And she actually lived with it, right, with your husband. And so she decided that she was going to write a book because a lot of people go through this, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about your book. I mean, how you decided you were going to write a book, how you found out your husband had PTSD. We could start anywhere. It's a big topic.
It's a big topic. Okay, well, let's start with 2000.
Yeah.
I met my husband. Wonderful guy, very loving, very calm. And a couple years later, in 2003, he started changing. He started getting depressed. He started getting angry over just
Small things.
Small things. He started getting hyper vigilant. He couldn't sleep at night. He'd be wandering the house, checking all the doors,
So seeming a little paranoid.
seeming a little paranoid.
Okay.
Yes. And then he started having nightmares, and I would wake up with a fist in my face.
Oh, my
With him
God.
kicking me.
Wow.
He started screaming in a foreign language. And at that time, I really wasn't sure what language it was, but later found out it was Vietnamese.
Wow. Because he was a Vietnam vet.
He was a Vietnam vet. He had two tours of duty in Vietnam, so he was there for a total of 19 months.
Oh my. Yeah, 19 years would be a long time, but yeah, 19 months. 19 months, but still, it has a
That's
major
plenty.
impact.
It was. He came home from Vietnam all in one piece,
Yeah.
no injuries at that point in time, so his life went on.
Not knowing that this could show up later.
Exactly.
Well, so how did you make the connection? I mean,
Yeah.
you're living with this man, he starts turning into somebody that you're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Right? A complete stranger.
Yes.
And thus the title of the book, A Stranger in My Bed.
Yeah.
So how did you start figuring out this was PTSD? I mean, seriously,
Really? Yeah.
why would you think some 25, 30 years later after coming home that he would suddenly start exhibiting the symptoms?
That's a great question, because at the beginning, neither one of us had any idea what was going on with him. He thought he was just having he felt like he was becoming a monster. And he was very afraid because he did not know why this behavior was coming out, and he couldn't control this behavior.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any idea what was happening to him either. Even though I'd had a background in psychology, I had, had a minor in psychology in college and did a lot of work in the mental health field throughout my career. I had absolutely no idea what was happening to him.
Wow. So what was your first step in figuring this out?
He had an amazing thing happen, which was such a blessing to us. He was in the parking lot down at the mall, waiting for me to come out, standing outside the car, and he had his Vietnam vet hat on, and another Vietnam vet walked by, and my husband called out to him and said, "Welcome home, brother." And the other vet said the same, walked over, shook hands with my husband, and they started talking.
Yeah.
And my husband started sharing with him some things that he could only share with another vet. And this man said, "Have you been to the VA? Are you getting any help?" And my husband said, "I don't need any help.
Right.
I'm fine."
Right.
Which is generally the typical answer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so this man, his name's Joe Ramirez, said to Randy, "You need help." The next morning, he showed up on our front door.
Oh.
And he virtually took my husband by the hand. He took him down to the Veterans Service office, walked him in the door.
Oh
and
my
said,
God.
"This man needs help."
What a blessing that they ran across each other and
Yeah.
in a parking lot, and that your husband shared. He must have said something about something that would have lent Mr. Ramirez to understand that your husband wasn't just having bad dreams or nightmares. He was
Yeah.
actually having PTSD episodes.
And so serendipitous too, like the whole thing. It's
Yeah.
just, it happened like that.
What's even funnier is I met my husband in a parking lot.
Oh.
Who knows what's gonna happen next in the parking lot for you guys?
Yeah, we have a parking lot thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he asked him some very pointed, I think once they started talking, then he asked Randy some very pointed
Right.
questions. And it didn't take long for him.
So he recognized it right away,
recognize
even
it.
though you guys had no clue.
Exactly.
Yeah. How long had it
exactly.
been going on at that point?
At that point, it had been going on probably about a year and a half.
Oh my stars. That's a long time.
And were you getting advice from other people, like, you should leave, or this is spousal abuse? Like, what were people telling you? Did you ever open up to anyone?
The few people I opened up to before he got diagnosed,
Yeah.
Yes, they were telling me that I should just leave him.
Oh.
And then once he got diagnosed, and I was sharing it with people, I was getting things like, there's no such thing as PTSD.
Oh my, wow.
He's just using that as an excuse for his bad behavior.
Oh no.
Oh my God.
So tell us about PTSD. How would you know if somebody in your life had it?
Yeah.
I mean, what are the symptoms? What are the signs? What is it? Can you define it for our viewers?
Certainly. The quick answer, simple answer to that question is PTSD is a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. PTSD, a lot of people think of it as something that happens with just military. And with military, you don't have to be in active combat. You can just be in the vicinity of combat and still end up with PTSD. Our firefighters, our policemen, first responders, people that have had physical, mental abuse.
Yeah. Children.
Children,
Yeah.
lots of children
Yes.
that grew up in abusive families. Natural disasters like hurricanes and tornadoes and fires, car accidents.
Yeah.
So there's just lots of reasons why people can end up, any kind of traumatic experience can result in
Post-traumatic, yeah.
Post-traumatic stress disorder
Yeah.
is the full
Yes.
name, right?
And it can be latent, it sounds like. You can have a latent response where it's much later.
Exactly. Typically, if within 30 days after the traumatic event you're still experiencing some symptoms, then you should go and be seen and see, if you do have PTSD. Sometimes it comes right after the event and then goes away. Some people have it their entire life, and some people it comes on early and then goes away and shows up many years later. Now with my husband, it showed up after 30 years later.
It's just crazy.
And that's happening a lot with our older Vietnam veterans, because so many of them, they came home, they immediately went
Start back into civilian life.
right. A lot of them became workaholics,
Yep.
So they held all those feelings down for many years. And once they get older, maybe they retire, and they don't have as much to keep them busy. And
It starts surfacing.
it starts surfacing.
So what prompted you to write a book about this?
Well, when my husband, he started getting treatment, but nobody told us that once he started his treatment, it was going to get so much worse before it got better.
Oh, wow.
30 years of memories erupting like an angry volcano.
Yeah.
So all of his symptoms, the anger, the hypervigilance, the sleepless nights, they affected me too.
Absolutely.
And I became angry, I became resentful, I became somebody that I didn't know. So we virtually both became strangers.
Yeah. Now, when you started dealing with all of this, the recovery process, right? How did you deal with that? Because that's kind of a big deal. I think earlier you were saying that someone else can also take on PTSD. So how did you deal with kind of those symptoms and things that you were having happen?
When I finally just got to the bottom of just being so depressed and just having no idea because I didn't know what was happening to me. I knew what was happening to my husband.
Right.
And so I finally said to my husband, I just don't really care about life anymore.
Yeah.
And he said, I can't help you.
Oh, geez.
Oh, my.
So the next day he said, I can't help you, so you need to find someone else. So I did. I found a therapist in town and saw her a few times, and she said, Debbie, you've got PTSD as well.
Oh.
And you just need to walk away. You just need to divorce your husband, get on with your life.
Oh,
Oh,
geez.
my.
So I didn't take that answer. I thought, well, maybe I need somebody that has more experience with PTSD. So I found someone else and went to see him several times. And then he told me the same thing. Debbie, you've got PTSD, and I know that you don't want to get a divorce, but you need to.
Oh.
Wow.
So I walked away. I walked away from both of the therapists, and I thought, okay.
She walked away from the,
the
therapist,
therapist.
not the husband. That's what I love. I mean,
Yeah.
because a lot of women are told that same thing, right? They're told, walk away from your spouse, the person that you made a vow to for the rest of your life, and you can't help that person.
So instead, you wrote a book.
Instead, I
Started
wrote a book.
journaling.
Well, through all of these feelings and emotions that I was dealing with, my outlet was journaling, because nobody understood what I was going through, and so I
Yeah.
really didn't have anybody to talk to. So I started journaling, and when the therapist told me to walk away, I decided I needed to do something on my own. So I started doing a lot of research. I started looking for support for myself.
Yeah.
And I found Family of a Vet. It was an online support group.
Family of a Vet.
Familyofavet.org.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Thank
Which,
you.
by the way, a portion of the proceeds from Debbie's book go to support Family of a Vet.
Yep.
So,
Yes.
and you know what? We are running out of time. So very quickly, I want our viewers to know that Debbie is also a life coach. She has taken these lessons, painful, hard lessons,
Yeah.
and turned them into something really good. So if you want to talk to someone who understands, or you want help, you can visit Debbie's website, debbiesprague.com. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes. And what would be one thing you would want our viewers to know in the final few seconds we have here together?
I would just like our viewers to know that you don't have to be alone. There's hundreds of thousands of other people out there suffering. So please reach out to somebody. If you have a veteran or anyone that you think has PTSD, reach out and get help.
Yeah.
And one way to do that would be visiting Debbie's site. So thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for watching. We've had a great show today, and we're going to look forward to seeing you next week on the forum.